Mark Bennett had always valued quiet mornings. He loved the soft hum of the coffee machine, the low creak of the kitchen floorboards, and the gentle way sunlight slipped through the curtains like a whispered greeting. But this morning felt different, heavy, almost crowded despite the stillness. He couldn't explain it. Nothing in the house had changed. The same framed photos lined the hallway, filled with familiar smiles. The same soft gray couch sat in the living room, shaped perfectly to fit the lives of two people who had shared years together. Everything in his house still felt like home. But Mark felt a subtle shift inside himself, something he couldn't yet name. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't fear. It was something quieter, like the sense that a story was unfolding somewhere, just out of sight. Mark brushed the thought away and headed toward the coffee machine. He was a man who valued routines. They kept him grounded, steady, predictable. His life, for the most part, reflected that. He woke early, worked hard as a project coordinator for a local construction company, came home by 6 and shared dinner with his wife, Emily. They enjoyed quiet evenings reading, cooking together, planning little weekend getaways they often postponed but still loved dreaming about. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was full of love, full of respect, full of the kind of small moments people often overlook until they're gone. Yet even as Mark poured his morning coffee, he felt that strange heaviness again, like a memory brushing too close. He had no idea that by the end of the day, he would find something that would shake the foundation of everything he believed about his marriage. But for now, he simply sipped his coffee and tried to ease the tightness in his chest. A glimpse into Mark's world. Mark was the kind of man people described as steady, dependable, patient, quietly thoughtful. Not someone who needed the spotlight. Not someone who chased chaos. He had grown up in a small town where people left their doors unlocked, and where everyone knew the birthdays of their neighbors' children. His upbringing shaped him deeply. He believed in honesty, loyalty, and the idea that families are built on shared truths. It was probably why he fell in love with Emily so quickly. Emily had entered his life like sunlight breaking through clouds. She was gentle and warm, someone who listened with her full heart, someone who made the world feel a little softer simply by being in it. Her laugh, soft, warm, almost musical, was the sound Mark cherished most. She made ordinary days feel meaningful, and Mark always believed he made her feel safe. He trusted her completely, or at least he thought he did. A life filled with quiet longing despite having a strong marriage. Mark carried a quiet longing in the back of his mind, a desire he rarely acknowledged. It wasn't for excitement or adventure. It wasn't for wealth or recognition. His longing was simpler, deeper. He wanted to understand everything about the woman he married. Every dream, every fear, every part of her that still lived behind her thoughtful eyes. Emily was loving, present, and kind. But she was also private. Not distant, never that, but careful. She held certain stories close to her heart, not out of mistrust, but out of habit. Mark had always assumed she would open those pages in time. Marriage was long. Life was long. People shared their histories when they felt ready. He never pushed her. He trusted her silence. But as he stood in the kitchen that morning waiting for the toast to pop up, he felt something he couldn't quite explain, like a whisper from a memory he didn't know he had. Something in the house felt different. He tried to shake the feeling off, telling himself it was nothing more than a passing mood. Everyone has strange mornings sometimes. Everyone wakes up feeling slightly unanchored for no clear reason. Still, a part of him, a small, quiet part, felt like something was pressing gently against his life, waiting to be noticed. The spark of curiosity when Emily walked into the kitchen a few minutes later, wrapped in her soft blue robe, smiling the tired morning smile he always loved. Mark tried to focus on her warmth. "Good morning," she whispered, leaning her head briefly against his shoulder. "Morning," he murmured. Squeezing her hand, she looked peaceful, almost glowing in the morning light. Nothing about her expression hinted at anything unusual. She moved around the kitchen in her usual graceful way, humming softly as she reached for the cereal box. Everything was normal, and yet That feeling didn't go away. It hovered like a quiet question at the edge of Mark's thoughts. Something was coming. He didn't know what. He didn't know when. But he felt it, and the strange part was, he wasn't afraid. He was curious. Curious in a way that made his heart beat slow, not from worry, but from the sense that life was preparing to reveal something important. He had no idea that later that day, while tidying the closet, he would find a letter that wasn't addressed to him. A letter written in Emily's handwriting. A letter she had hidden for years. But for now, Mark only knew one thing. Change was moving toward him. Quiet but certain. Like a tide slowly reaching the shore. And he was finally ready to notice the strange heaviness. Mark felt that morning followed him as he walked to his car. But it softened when he glanced back at the house. Through the front window, he saw Emily tying her hair into a loose bun, humming to herself as she watered the small plant collection she adored. The sight stirred something gentle inside him, a reminder of why he fell in love with her in the first place, and like a door silently opening in his mind, memories he had tucked away began to return. The day everything began, Mark met Emily on a rainy afternoon 8 years earlier. He remembered the exact moment it happened, not because it was dramatic or loud, but because it was so quietly impactful. It stayed with him ever since. He had been standing under the awning outside a bookstore, waiting for the rain to ease. People hurried past, umbrellas bending in the wind. Cars splashed through puddles. The world felt rushed, impatient. Then Emily appeared beside him, completely soaked despite holding an umbrella that had flipped itself inside out. She laughed, not the nervous kind, but a warm, self-aware laugh that made the air feel lighter. "Well, that went well," she said, shaking water from her sleeves. Mark had looked at her, surprised by how quickly her presence shifted the mood around them. She had a way of making even the rain feel softer somehow. He offered her his dry umbrella. She accepted with a smile that changed something in him later. They would joke about that day, how a broken umbrella and a patch of bad weather had pushed their lives together. But in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not attraction alone, not fate, something deeper. A kind of recognition, as if they had been moving toward each other long before they ever met. The first long conversation, Mark smiled at the memory as he drove to work, hearing the echo of Emily's early laughter in his mind. They talked for almost an hour, that first day long after the rain had stopped. They stayed under the bookstore awning, exchanging stories about childhood, favorite books, awkward moments, future plans. Mark noticed how Emily listened with her full attention, her eyes soft and present. She wasn't someone who pretended to care. She cared fully, honestly. But he also noticed something else. Even then, how she chose her words with careful thought. As though there were stories she wasn't ready to share yet. Not secrets, not lies, just doors she kept gently closed. Mark didn't push. He never would. Instead, he found himself drawn to her kindness, the ease of their conversation, the way she looked at the world as if searching for something worth holding on to. When they eventually exchanged numbers, Mark left with a rare feeling, a hopeful one he hadn't experienced in years. Why they connected over the next few months? Their connection grew effortlessly. There was no rush, no pressure, no dramatic declarations. Just a steady unfolding of two people learning each other's hearts. Mark loved the quiet moments with her, their long walks through the park at dusk, the way she paused before answering, as if giving emotions the space they deserved, the subtle humor she hid behind thoughtful eyes, the comfortable silence that didn't feel like silence at Albert. He also sensed the invisible line in her life, something she kept tucked away. Not out of distance, but out of old pain she hadn't learned to unhold yet. He never asked about it. He believed trust was something that should never be rushed, and Emily, in return, treated Mark with a tenderness that made him feel understood in a way he hadn't felt since childhood. She knew when he needed quiet. She noticed when he was overwhelmed. She saw him not the version he showed others, but the version he thought no one paid attention to. Their love grew from that simple truth, not intensity, not perfection, just two people choosing each other gently, the distance they never named still, even in those early years. There were moments when Emily drifted slightly soft pauses, where her eyes seemed to look inward, as if searching for a memory she didn't want to touch. Sometimes, when Mark shared stories from his past, she would smile with genuine warmth, yet offer very little about her own. Not because she didn't want to, but because something held her back. Mark understood. Everyone has a chapter they keep folded away. He assumed that one day she would share hers, when she felt ready, and whenever her voice quieted, whenever she turned thoughtful and distant for a heartbeat too long. Mark would offer her a gentle smile, the kind that said, "You are safe. I'm here. Take your time." Emily always smiled back, grateful in a way she never put into words. Looking back now, Mark realized, he lay awake long after midnight, staring at the faint shadows on the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the world outside their home. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once and then fell silent. A car passed occasionally, headlights sweeping across the curtains. But none of it reached him. His mind was too full. The message replayed again and again in his thoughts. Before you marry Lily, ask her what happened 5 years ago. It was almost morning when Ethan finally rose from the couch, exhausted but unable to stay still. He moved toward the kitchen, craving the comfort of routine coffee, warm light, quiet moments, but even that felt foreign today as he filled the kettle. He caught sight of something on the fridge that made his chest tighten. A small photo from a recent afternoon, he and Lily at the lake, laughing because the wind had blown her hair straight into his face just as the camera clicked. It was the kind of picture people would look at and assume everything was perfect. And until yesterday, Ethan thought it was. He touched the edge of the photo lightly, a strange ache rising in him. What was she hiding? Why didn't she trust him enough to tell him? Before he could think further, the front door opened. Lily stepped inside, cheeks rosy from the chilly morning air, a paper bag in her hands. "I went out early," said with a soft smile as she set the bag down. "Thought I'd bring you your favorite pastries before the bakery got busy." Ethan froze. The contrast between her simple, thoughtful gesture and the storm inside him made the moment almost surreal. Lily turned toward him and paused. Her eyes, always expressive, softened with concern. "Ethan, are you okay?" He wished he could lie. He wished he could pretend the message never came. But his voice felt heavy when he answered. "I didn't sleep much." She stepped closer, searching his face. "Is it the wedding stress again?" He opened his mouth to say yes. The easy answer, the safe answer, but fate, it seemed, had no intention of letting him hide. Today, his phone buzzed on the counter. Both of them glanced at it. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. The timing was too sharp, too perfect, too deliberate. Lily swallowed. "Is everything all right?" He moved slowly to the phone, somehow knowing that the message would matter. It did. Another unknown text appeared, short, cold, certain. "You deserve to know before it's too late." Lily's face went still. Ethan's throat tightened. It was impossible to pretend now. Impossible to act like nothing was happening. "Lily," he whispered, and something in the way he said her name made her take a step back, her expression shifting from concern to fear. Ethan held up the phone. "Someone's been sending me messages." Her breath caught. "Messages? About you?" For a long moment, Lily didn't speak. Her eyes flickered, her fingers trembling slightly at her side. She looked like someone standing on the edge of a truth she had tried hard to outrun. Ethan waited patiently, painfully. But before either of them could say more, the world pushed in another unexpected door. There was a knock, not loud, not urgent, but steady, 3 firm taps that seemed to echo through the entire house. Lily flinched. Ethan looked at her. "Are you expecting someone?" She shook her head slowly. Too slowly, Ethan walked to the door and opened it. A man stood on the porch, tall, nervous. Familiar in the worst way, like a name Ethan had never heard, but somehow already recognized. His hands were tucked into the pockets of a worn jacket, his posture tense. "Ethan?" the man asked quietly. Ethan nodded, unsure. The man inhaled. "My name is Aaron." The air inside the house seemed to freeze. Behind Ethan, he heard Lily's sharp, involuntary gasp. The name felt heavy, like something older than all of them. Something with roots reaching back into the years Lily never talked about. Aaron swallowed hard. "I know I shouldn't be here, but you deserve the truth." Lily stepped forward, her voice unsteady. "Aaron, you can't." He raised a hand gently, not to silence her, but to steady himself. "Lily, please. I'm not here to cause trouble." Ethan looked between them, his pulse racing. 3 days before the wedding, the past he'd always sensed but never seen had walked right to their front door. Aaron glanced at Ethan again. "Someone else sent those messages. Not me. But they're not lying." Lily closed her eyes for a moment, as though bracing for a storm she knew too well. Ethan felt the room tilt slightly. The past hadn't just returned, it was standing on his doorstep, breathing the same cold morning air he was. He had questions. So many questions, but all he could manage was a whisper. "What happened 5 years ago?" Aaron answered with a look Ethan had never seen in another man's eyes, raw regret. "Deep sorrow. Lily didn't just leave me," he said softly. He glanced at her. Then back at Ethan. "She saved me." And in that instant, Ethan realized nothing about their life, past, present, or future, was as simple as he once believed. For a long moment, the world seemed to stand still. Aaron's voice hung in the quiet air of the living room, echoing through a space filled with wedding decorations, soft colors, and plans for a future none of them fully understood anymore. Lily stood near the doorway, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Ethan could see the small tremors in her fingers, the kind that came when a person was trying not to fall apart. Aaron shifted awkwardly, the weight of his presence pressing into every corner of the room. He looked older than Ethan expected, not in age, but in the way sorrow had carved itself gently into his expression. Ethan swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" "She saved you." Aaron exhaled slowly, as if releasing memories he had held too close for too long. 5 years ago, he began, "I was going through one of the hardest times of my life. I didn't ask for help. I pushed everyone away. And Lily, she tried to hold everything together for me." Lily closed her eyes at his words, her shoulders curling inward just slightly, an instinctive flinch, as though she had been bracing for this truth to resurface for years. Aaron continued, his voice steady but full of regret. "I wasn't a good partner. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know how to face what I was going through. I made mistakes, big ones. I shut her out, yet depended on her more than I should have. And she stayed longer than anyone else would have." His gaze fell to the floor, and when I finally realized how much pain I had put her through, she was already carrying the weight of both of our lives. Ethan felt a tightness in his chest, an ache he didn't fully understand yet. Lily opened her eyes, looking at Aaron with a softness that surprised Ethan, not because she still cared in the way she once did, but because she cared about truth, closure, and kindness. That was who she was. "I tried to help you," Lily said quietly, "but I couldn't save you if you wouldn't let me in." Aaron nodded. "I know, and I don't blame you. I never did." Ethan felt his breath come unevenly. He had never been jealous of Lily's past. What hurt wasn't that she had loved someone before him, but that she had once carried so much pain and never told him. But he stayed silent. He needed the full truth. Aaron hesitated, then turned toward Ethan. "What Lily won't tell you, maybe, because she's too humble or too afraid. You'll think less of her, Sechi. Left our relationship because she realized she wasn't just losing me." He paused, searching for the right words. She was losing herself. Lily looked away, her throat tightening. Ethan watched her carefully, noticing the way her eyes glistened, not with dramatic tears, but with the quiet sorrow of someone remembering a version of themselves they hope to forget. I didn't want Ethan to think I was broken, Lily whispered, or that I was someone who couldn't hold her life together. Ethan stepped closer, his voice soft. Lily, you're not broken. But Lily didn't respond. She looked toward the window as though the world outside held a memory only she could see. Aaron continued gently. She carried my struggles for months, maybe even years. And it drained her. When she finally walked away, it wasn't because she didn't care. It was because she had nothing left to give. Ethan felt something inside him shift, not anger, not betrayal, but a deep, aching empathy. He walked slowly toward Lily. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice quiet, almost afraid of the answer. Lily's eyes finally met his. "Because," she said, her voice trembling, "I was scared that if you knew how much I went through, you'd look at me differently. I didn't want my past to shape our future. I didn't want you to think I loved you because I needed saving." Ethan felt his heart twist. "You never needed saving," he said. "You only needed someone who would be there for you. Someone who wouldn't let you carry everything alone." A single tear slipped down Lily's cheek. She brushed it away quickly, as if embarrassed by her own vulnerability. "I didn't want you to see me like this," she whispered. "I wanted our life to start with joy, not old shadows." Aaron stepped back, giving them space. "I came because I didn't want this secret to hurt you later," he said softly. "Lily deserves happiness. And you deserve the truth." There was no bitterness in his voice, only sincerity. A sincerity that made the moment feel heavier, more real. Ethan reached gently for Lily's hand. She let him hold it, her fingers tightening around his. "You don't have to hide your past from me," he murmured. "Not the parts that hurt. Not the parts that shaped you. I love all of you, Lily, the light, and the shadows." She trembled, the unspoken emotions finally rising to the surface. All the fear she had held close. All the hesitation. All the longing to be understood. "I'm just scared," she said. "Scared of losing you if you see the parts of me I've tried to forget." He shook his head. "You won't lose me. It takes only one moment to crack open the truth, one message, one whisper, one unexpected shift in the air." Ethan never believed his life would change because of something so small. He always thought life-changing moments arrived with fanfare, storms breaking over the horizon. Doors slamming shut, hearts splitting open with loud and obvious pain. But in his case, the moment came quietly. Like a single pebble dropped into still water, he was sitting alone in his tiny home office, a place that had slowly turned into a collection of wedding checklists, seating charts and thank you cards that still needed signatures. The evening sun fell across his desk in long orange streaks, warming the edges of his paper piles and making the room feel softer, almost nostalgic. Ethan had been telling himself for weeks that he was excited, truly excited to marry Lily in just a few days. And he was. Mostly, but hidden beneath all the lists. All the logistics, all the typical pre-wedding chaos. Ethan carried a quiet ache he never said out loud. The fear that something too perfect must have a crack somewhere. He loved Lily. He loved her deeply. She was calm where he was restless, thoughtful where he was impulsive, and gentle in ways that softened the sharper corners of his world. Every time she smiled, he felt something inside himself settle. And yet, there were moments, small ones, where he sensed a sadness in her she never explained. Moments when her eyes drifted somewhere far away, as if she were remembering a chapter of her life she never shared. Moments when Ethan wondered if there was a part of her, heart still locked behind a door he didn't know how to open. He didn't push her. He always respected her space. But sometimes, late at night, he found himself staring at the ceiling and wishing he understood her shadows as well as he understood her light. That evening, his phone buzzed. He almost ignored it. He assumed it was his best friend checking in or his mom asking again. He remembered to pick up the suits from the tailor. Ethan reached for the phone with the tiredness of a man who had already read too. Many messages that day, but when he looked at the screen, he froze. Unknown number. Before you marry Lily, ask her what happened 5 years ago. She's hiding something. Ethan stared at the message so long the screen dimmed and locked itself. He tapped it back on as if maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something. Harmless. They didn't. His heart thudded heavily against his ribs. His first instinct was disbelief. His second was dread. His third, stronger than the rest, was a sudden rush of fear for Lily. Who would send something like this? Why now? And why hide behind an unknown number? His breath hitched. Was this some kind of cruel joke? A mistake? A jealous friend from her past? Someone trying to ruin their wedding? He tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out thin and unconvincing. Lily didn't lie. She wasn't the kind of person who played games with hearts. She wasn't careless or secretive. She was honest, sometimes painfully so. Ethan had always trusted her more than he trusted himself. But the message felt intentional. It felt like something someone sent when they were desperate to be heard. Ethan set the phone down and stood up, pacing the small office. His thoughts tangled together faster than he could separate them. He remembered the first time he met Lily, how she walked into the bookstore where he worked, running her fingers along the spines of old novels like she was greeting old friends. How she smiled at him like she wasn't in a rush to be anywhere else. How her laugh, soft and warm, made him feel like the world wasn't such a lonely place after all. He remembered the night he told her he loved her. She had gone quiet, not scared, not unsure, just quiet, in a way that made him wonder what memories lived behind her silence. He remembered moments where she seemed like she wanted to say something but didn't. Moments where her eyes glistened with something bittersweet. And now this message. This whisper from a stranger about a past Ethan had never asked about. A cold breeze drifted through the half-open window, brushing his skin with a chill that made him suddenly aware of how alone he felt in the room. The papers, the lists, the decorations, everything around him symbolized a future he thought he understood. But now the future felt blurred around the edges. He picked up his phone again, staring at the message as if he could decode the sender through sheer willpower. His throat tightened. He didn't know whether to feel angry, scared, protective, or heartbroken. All he knew was that he couldn't ignore it. Not when it came to Lily. Not when it came to their life together. Quietly, almost reluctantly, Ethan whispered to himself, "What happened 5 years ago?" And that question, fragile, trembling, but impossible to avoid, was the moment everything began to unravel. Ethan didn't confront Lily right away. He told himself he needed time to think. But the truth was simpler. He needed a moment to remember who she truly was before letting a stranger's message shake everything. He left the office quietly and walked into the living room, where the warm glow of a floor lamp softened the edges of the space. Everywhere he looked, he saw pieces of their story, the framed photo of them from their first autumn together, Lily smiling beneath a cascade of red and gold leaves, Ethan laughing because she had insisted he look happier, and shoved her shoulder into his to make him laugh for real. The small ceramic mug Lily painted for him on their third dates, lightly uneven, with the words "Steady Heart" written in soft blue paint. She had handed it to him with a shy grin and said, "You feel like someone who holds things together." The dried bouquet from the day he proposed, simple white flowers Lily had picked during their hike, tucked carefully into a mason jar near the bookshelf. Every corner of the house whispered memories. Every memory whispered Lily's gentle, steady love. Ethan sank onto the couch, letting the weight of the past settle around him like a familiar blanket. Their first meeting, he had been shelving books on a late Slade Friday afternoon when Lily walked into the shop, her hair slightly damp from the rain outside. She shook her umbrella gently and offered him an apologetic smile, as if she had personally offended the weather. "Sorry," she said softly. "I always forget how unpredictable this town is." He remembered the exact moment something inside him shifted, so faint, so quiet, but unmistakable. She walked through the store with an almost careful grace, pausing when she found a book she loved. She didn't just look at the cover. She traced the title with the tips of her fingers as though reconnecting with an old memory. When she approached the counter, she placed her book down and said, "You look like someone who knows stories. Do you have a favorite?" He was stunned that anyone would ask him something so personal so easily. He recommended a novel he loved, and she bought it without hesitation, saying, "Then I'll read it and tell you if I see what you see." The next day she came back, and the day after that, and the day after that, not because of the book he later realized, but because she liked being around him. And he liked being around her. It sounded simple, ordinary, but ordinary. Moments were often the ones that shaped people the most. Their unspoken bond one memory surfaced clearly. Sharper than the rest, it was a winter evening. The bookstore had closed early due to a snowstorm. Lily had been the last customer inside, and Ethan hadn't wanted her to walk home alone. They walked side by side through the silent snow, their footsteps muffled beneath soft white flakes. The streetlights glowed faintly through the falling snow, outlining her face in a gentle golden light dot. At one point, she stopped and tilted her head back, letting the flakes land on her eyelashes. She smiled, small and a little wistful. "Snow always makes me think of starting over," she murmured. "Like the whole world gets quiet enough for you to hear yourself again." Ethan didn't understand then, but he felt the heaviness behind her words. A heaviness she never explained. He remembered how he wanted to ask her what she meant, but he didn't. Something in her expression told him she wasn't ready, and something in his heart told him that caring meant patience. They walked the rest of the way in comfortable silence, their shoulders brushing occasionally, not intentionally, but naturally, like two people slowly learning the rhythm of each other's steps. What held them together? And apart, looking back now, Ethan realized that Lily always carried a quiet sadness. Not something that defined her, but something that lived in the spaces between her smiles. Sometimes she thought he wasn't looking. She'd stare out the window as if searching for a version of herself she once left behind. Other times, she'd hesitate before answering questions about her past, choosing her words the way one chooses fragile ornaments, carefully, gently, with a hint of fear. Ethan respected those moments. He didn't push. He didn't pry. He believed trust grew best in open hands, not closed fists. Still, those little hesitations, those unspoken pauses, had built a quiet curiosity in him over the years. He wondered sometimes whether Lily loved him not because she had healed, but because she was trying to learn how. And now, with that message burning in his memory, those thoughts felt heavier than before. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. He loved her. That was unquestionable. But he knew love wasn't just about holding someone close. It was also about understanding what kept them standing just a step away. A past she never spoke about. Ethan tried to remember if Lily had ever mentioned a time frame, anything that happened 5 years ago. But every memory he sifted through revealed the same thing. That part of her life was a seal.